Welcome everyone to our Inspiring Authors series, which you can find on our blog and which complements our book review club, which has also been a great success. Now, if you are a practitioner wanting, dreaming, struggling probably to add a book to your business strategy, you are in the perfect place. Guests will be sharing not only their writing and publishing story, but also how having a book upscaled their business. Now, I, for one, it's been on my list of things to do for quite a long time. So I'm eager for Leisa's tips, experience, and expertise. My name is Julie Kennedy. I am your IAPC&M host, and my guest author today is Leisa Reid, founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now. Leisa mentors professionals who want to use public speaking to grow their business. And actually, interesting fact, she actually grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska, which I know nothing about at all. Leisa is, of course, an author, and today we will be talking about her book, Get Speaking Gigs Now, Learn the Secrets to Booking 500 plus speaking gigs now. So welcome, Leisa. First of all, congratulations on your book, and thank you for sharing your process with us here today. Shall we drive straight in?
Yes, let's do it.
Go for it. Now, first of all, I hope I've been pronouncing your name properly.
Yes,
because it's Leisa, but written in a very in a very artistic, I find, way. So, I mean, let's just go straight for it. Why did you write a book?
It's funny. I started my first, I'll tell you later on the first book I did, but this book, I didn't plan to write it. In fact, I had a friend who is a genius, one of those tech geniuses, one of those people who can just do anything in the middle of the night. He just whips it up, one of those guys. And he's written many, many books. And he says to me, it's like a Wednesday night. He says, you really need a book, because we were going to do a project together, because we got to get you a book. And I said, well, yeah, that's, on the agenda. This was December 2019.
Okay.
And I said, well, it's a goal of mine for next year. Probably I'll, get around to doing that. I go to bed, I wake up, and he has the cover, which you're seeing right here. If you're watching video, the cover is in my inbox, and he's like, yeah, he designed the front cover, the back cover. It was already all done.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, what do I need to do now?
Next year, like, what are we doing? And then he did something that was really, really helpful. He sent me a Google Doc with like the templated, like it's basically like a fill in the blank for your book.
Right.
And he knew that I had 7 steps to my academy and 7 steps that I teach speakers all the time. So he's like, start with those, and then he just had this really great way of giving me the questions to fill in that weren't saying obviously it's not everything is in my academy, is not in the book, but like he just made it so easy. And
so there was a structure, right?
Structure. I work really well with structure. Like I'm a good like fill in the blank, like give me the outline, and then I'll fill the outline. I can do that all day.
Yes.
But if it's just a blank piece of paper, I'm like, it was a dark and stormy night.
Yeah, it's rather overwhelming, right? Because it's almost, for lots of us, it's not so much what to put in, it's what to leave out, so that it doesn't become a monster that nobody will want to read. So he made it real for you, right? You woke up and it was already basically reality, and you changed nothing. You kept the cover as it was.
I changed one like punctuation thing. That was like, I was like, we've changed a period to an exclamation point or something like that. We changed one thing. That's it. That's how good he is. He's still alive. And then I started writing, because he was like, you need to get this done. Come on, where's your chapters? Okay. And I literally had it in my hands by January 2020.
Wow.
So I feel like I wrote it in a weekend, to be honest. I just cranked it out. And I'm not saying I didn't already have the information. And this is where it's helpful. Like if there's a coach out there listening who's like, I already have a program, I've developed all this content, you can really use that that's what I did, of like a jumping off point for the book. So you're not starting from nothing, right? You actually already created all that. So that's what made it really easy for me. And within 2 weeks, I had it in my hands.
Unbelievable. So, I mean, if we're trying to convert that into tips, so on the one hand, he made it almost visually real. Basically, you woke up in the morning and it was as if the book was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And then
don't
he
have to
structured
explain it.
it for you. So the structure is, I think for lots of us, the structure is key. And if you know, I mean, lots of us do have, you know, whether it's your programs that we've been running or an online course since COVID, for example, that we don't need to recreate the wheel. We need to just take that and put it out there. And so you mentioned this was not your first book.
Right.
So tell me about your first
Yeah.
book.
So for anyone who's listening, who's like, oh, I've never written a book, you know.
Yeah.
So I was there. I had been a speaker probably for a year or two, and I would get out, like they'd say, oh, you can come and speak and you can put your books on the table. And I'm like, and I would say, oh, I don't have a book. Thanks for asking, you know, that kind of thing. And I just got sick of saying them.
Yes.
Sometimes getting the thing you don't want is the thing that motivates you, right? I was like, I am
Right.
just so tired of saying I don't have a book. I don't want to say that anymore. So I'm gonna have a book. Well, then I thought about it and I thought, oh gosh, that's a lot of work in my head, you know, oh, this is gonna
Yes.
be
Yes.
hard. And I realized that I was saying that, which is great when we're coaches. We're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of, you could become more aware of your inner
Yes. In a
thoughts and
voice. Exactly.
that. So I thought, oh my gosh, well, what if it was easy? What if I, you know, contributed a chapter in a book or something like what if someone else did all the work and I just wrote a chapter? That'd be cool. Well, I run this group called the OC Speakers Network. We still meet virtually. And this is when we used to meet in person. So I go to the meeting the next day after I have this revelation. And a gal comes to the meeting, never met her before. She stands up and she says, I'm writing, I do compilation books and I have, 3 spots or however many spots left for my chapter.
Oh,
It's this much money. Who's in? I'm like, girl,
perfect.
you are speaking my
Perfect
language.
timing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And because once you become an author, you can't become an author.
Right.
So it's just, I think it's a nice way to just ease
It's
yourself
an
in
easy way in, right? It makes it less overwhelming than having to do absolutely everything on your
everything.
own. Because I think lots of us, it's not even so much the writing, it's all the rest around it,
That
and getting it out there, and how am I going to publish it, and how am I going to pay for it, and to stay motivated, because that was also one of the tips you gave, talking about your friend colleague there who created this design for you and pushed you with the structure. He was on your back, right? Okay,
Yep.
where's the chapter, where's this?
Yep.
So I think having somebody that you're accountable to is probably also very helpful, or even saying it, out there, saying on Facebook, oh, I'm going to write a book, because at some point somebody's going to say to you, so, is it done yet? That
Yep.
you have to then really push yourself to keep going. So you started off by co-authoring then, right?
Yeah. So I was in that book, and then and that was cool because then it just was like, oh yay, I'm an author now and I have these books, and I got to practice kind of like bringing my books to an event or selling books,
Yeah.
whatever. And that was super fun. But then I like, oh, I want to write my own book.
Right.
And because I think honestly, I don't know if this is true for you, Julie, but once you do write a book, all of a sudden you kind of want to write another one, and then you got
Yes.
another one, like
Yes.
it does get easier. So I thought, well, I want to have my own, my own book. And I had a different company at the time. And I got to tell you, I did the same kind of thing that I did for this book. I had already created a ton of content, so I used that as the launch pad for the writing. And this one also was pretty quick. I mean, I think the process was about 3 months,
That
but
is fast.
it's still fast. But me, well, you don't know me that well, but I like to move. My husband calls me Duracell, like the battery. Like
No.
I like to move pretty quick. And that one was, I swear, I felt like I birthed a baby. Like it
Right.
was, I think the biggest surprise was how many times you have to actually read your book.
Yes.
Like I was like, okay, I've written
Done. Yeah. I can imagine that being very hard. I can imagine having to reread it, and you've done it. You feel happy. There we are, delivered. It's off my mind. But so, how did you stay motivated? I mean, that sort of thing. We say that it's the 3% club. That the only 3% of those who actually start writing a book finish it and actually get it out there. So, I mean, that's an awful lot of people, right? So, I'm always curious to, well, what technique did you use to make sure you stuck at it, that you didn't give up halfway? To be honest, I have about 25 sort of vaguely started and not finished books in my
Sure.
in my computer, let's say. So how did you actually commit to getting it out there?
Well, I'm a very determined person. And even when I was a child, I was just like, once I set my mind to something, it happens. And I think there's something really powerful about giving yourself a realistic but challenging date, like
Right.
that kind of stake in the ground. I'm a big fan of putting that stake in the ground. And then of course, telling someone. I
Yeah.
had a resource, a person, I don't know if I would call him a book coach necessarily, but he's a friend of mine who also was really championing me, a different person. And he said, so when do you think you want to get your book done? Like in 6 months? I go, oh, no, I'm getting it done by, this date. And so when I shared that with him, it was like, this is,
Yeah.
oh, I
You
know
had
what
to
it
do it.
was. Actually, I was getting okay, I forgot. This was so many years ago. I was getting honored at an event, a live event. It was like the end of May. So I wanted to make sure I had the books in hand for that event. And that's what was motivating me. I forgot about that.
And were there any doubts? Were there any moments? I mean, one
Oh,
thing
yeah.
that I also hear lots of people talking about is also self-confidence, the idea that, oh, there's so many books out there, who's waiting for another book from me, and it's very, I'm in total awe because, you're stripping yourself naked, you're putting yourself out there. Everybody will have an opinion on your book. It might not all be positive, or people that you thought would, buy it and read it, you can't even be bothered to, turn the first page. How did you keep yourself, committed to doing it? Because this was your book, right? It's not a copy of somebody else's book. It's your book.
Yep. It was definitely, I will say it's vulnerable. It's not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's something about having it in print forever, quote unquote, is revealing. And I didn't give that much thought to me. And that's probably just part of my personality. I always want to do a good job, and I'm going to work hard to do that, but I don't worry too much about what other people are going to say or think. My book wasn't controversial. I could see where if you're sharing really personal stories, that's going to be different. But I was giving more tips and teaching, which is also this book, my Get Speaking Gigs Now book is similar. So I didn't have that kind of waiver, but I did have some tears. Not going to lie, Julie, I definitely boohooed. And it was probably when I had learned I had to rewrite and reread it for the fifth time or something.
That really strikes a chord with me. I think I would find that very difficult. But so, okay, when you're saying when I had to reread and rewrite and all of that, so you had somebody who was checking this for you?
Yeah. So this is this is funny part. My mom is actually a professional editor. She used to work for the LA Times, for newspapers, and for her career, she is an editor, copy editor, and writer as well. And so she edited that book that I wrote myself, and she did a phenomenal job. But then you're layering on like the mom daughter, and all that. And she made that book like way better than I could have ever written it. But I got to a point where I was just like, I can't.
This is my
book. She's like, it's okay. It's gonna be fine. And she was right. All the suggestions she had were spot on. I just was tired.
Yeah, and I think it's we know we need feedback, and we're grateful for it because, of course, we know what we want to say, but it's not always obvious if that's what the other people are understanding. But still, it makes you vulnerable. And I think the closer the person is to you, it's like trying to help your children correct their essays. I mean, I just gave up very rapidly because just by being their mother, they thought that I was really not understanding anything and not getting them. So, I mean, but this is a great way for you to start that as well. And so your motivation, I still very much believe that our motivation is really what fuels us to do it. And okay, you were fed up with people saying to you, where's your book? Bring your book along, and you had to say, well, I don't actually have one. But I mean, I guess, are they all, I don't know what your other company was. Is it all of being of service, helping people, or?
Yeah, it was about management consulting, and basically like a book it's called Manage to Success, a guide to creating happy and productive employees. So it was really about like the things I wish I had learned when I was leading a team, and
exactly
simple tips like that.
So it's out of a desire. It's not just sort of to share a story or whatsoever. It's a desire to use what you've learned in order to help other people.
Absolutely.
I mean, since we're coaches here, on this IAPC&M, I think for lots of us, that's what stimulated us first of all to become coaches, and would be what would fuel us to actually go through the steps of getting it out there. Now, which avenue for the various books you've done did you take to publish?
Oh, I use Amazon, the Kindle or KDP publishing,
Okay.
self-publishing. Yeah.
Now, did you know anything about that to start with? Because I mean, I know my problem is the technical. I mean, I can write you 25 books, no problem, but I just the idea of having to go and sort through all that sort of stuff just really puts me off.
Well, I got connected with the gentleman I was saying who originally was helping me. And he was a wealth of knowledge. Just really like, this is how it works. You need an ISBN number, or that you need a book cover, you need a book designer, you know, interior designer, things like that, and an editor. Those were the key. I didn't know that. So he really helped me, like, these are the basic things that you're going to need. Here's how you create an account. And so I went through it, and it's not hard, but at the same point, if you've never done it before, it could be hard. And then, so when I did this one, my other friend did everything for me, which was awesome, because he had done it so many times. He just can do it.
Yeah, for him, it was nature.
So I mean,
no, go ahead.
We get, I don't know. Sometimes we think, oh, it's free, or I should just do it myself. I should do everything myself. And I'm like, no, you really shouldn't.
Yeah, I believe so too. But so did this involve quite a bit of finance? Because of course, that's also something which often holds us back. I mean, was it?
No, not for me. And again, there's ways that you could spend a lot of money getting your book done. Of course, you could spend a ton of time and a ton of money. It's kind of like a wedding. You know, you could plan a wedding in a month, a year, 2 years, whatever. You could get married for $100 or €100, whatever. Or you could get married for 100,000.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I think you can, you know, there's a lot of different variances with that.
So what I am also hearing you say is that definitely for the first one, you know, pay to get some help, you know, somebody who tells you, okay, this is what you need, this is where you can find it, this is more or less an average price, up to you if you want the mega fancy one or the, you know, down to earth one, but there's at least some guidance there. And I mean, you know, may as well, that's what we also coach, don't we? You know, we can't all be professional at everything, you know, focus on what you're best at and look after, get somebody else to do it for you. Now, one other question I have for you is, of course, so you mentioned that everybody was saying to you, bring your book along. What would you say your book has done for you? I mean, for example, this last one, the Get Speaking Gigs now, because that's your core business now, right? It's helping your clients get speaking engagements. So what would you say it has done for you professionally?
I think it provides definitely some credibility. It allows people to access your information in a different way that's not as, you know, maybe they're not ready to have a conversation with you. Maybe they're not ready, or I'll just speak for myself. Maybe they're not ready to have a conversation with me. Maybe they just want to kick some tires a little bit, or learn a little bit, but they're just not quite sure. They're maybe just not sure if they're
ready to commit.
Or they want to learn some tips and tricks, you know? And so I think that's really helpful. I also have an audio version of the book, which is really fun, especially me as a speaker. I really enjoy doing that.
Oh, of course,
and
that's
I'm
right.
able to add some extra bonus, you know, tips and things like that. But I think it helps your credibility as a speaker. I often get questions. People say like, well, you know, I can't become a speaker until I'm an author. And I'm like, well, that's not true. You can, of course, become a speaker. You don't need a book to become a speaker, but it enhances you as a speaker, right?
Yes.
And if you're going to have a book, why not speak about it, right? Because the two are like peanut butter and jelly. I don't know if that's really popular in where you live, but
I get the feeling.
Or, you know, American sandwich, having peanut butter and jelly.
I had to look it up once years ago. I thought jelly for me is that English thing, you know, which moves. I thought, they put that in a sandwich. And then I realized it's what we call jam. Yes. Okay.
My husband's from Ireland, so he's like, what are you doing?
Okay, no, but so indeed, so it makes a whole for your company, right? It's everything, implements everything else. And so do you sell it? Do you distribute it for free to get people's interest? How do you use it?
I use it. I sell it. So it's offered on Amazon, and same with the audio book that's offered on Awsound and the different platforms as well. I think for me, it's really just about giving people different avenues to access my information or access part of my knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't worry too much about, well, let me just say, not worry is not the right word, but book sales are not a
Yeah.
big concern or
Yeah.
focus that
Yeah.
I have. It's really like an accessory. It's kind of like, well, if I forgot to wear my bracelet today, no one's going
Yeah.
to notice. But if I forgot to wear my pants, people might notice.
They
You know what I
might
mean?
notice. Yeah, but no, I get you, and I think that probably takes a lot of the fear away, you know, because I mean, if you're there like, oh my gosh, you know, only 2 people have bought my book, I'm a loser, I'm terrible. I mean, that it shouldn't be the end in itself. It's first of all putting you in that league of experts in your field. It's you know, the credibility of having a book. I mean, can you still remember how it felt when you had your first copy in your hand?
Oh yeah, so exciting. Because this one really is the one I use the most out of all the books that I've been in and or been or authored. This is the one that like really sets the tone. It follows my speakers training academy. It's everything that I believe in. It's like, yep, if you do these things, like
Yeah.
this is going to set you up. And my goal is that when clients work with me, they are able to get booked and stay booked for the rest of their career, no matter where they live, no matter
Wow.
what they talk about. So it's all about like building that foundation to do that. And gosh, if you want to use speaking to market your business, I'm giving you a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if you're really serious about it, you know, this is where you have all the resources that you need for it. And I mean, I guess it's hard to know if you know, would you say that the book has converted into clients, or is that something that's very hard to say? I mean, has anybody said to you, oh, well, somebody gave me your book, or I bought this book and then thought, great, but I'd like her to actually help me right through the nitty-gritty?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my clients started as someone who like originally got the book and then came on. But I will say it's not my first strategy to get clients. I typically use speaking, and then people will have a conversation with me and we'll just decide together if we're a fit. And that interpersonal relationship to me is my favorite way to work with
Yeah,
somebody.
to get to move forward with somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense to me as well. So I mean, if I were to ask you for your top 3, let's say 3 tips that the
Okay.
listeners need to take away today in order to get that book out there.
I would say decide on a date that you want to launch. And then, so tip number 1.
Right.
Tip number 2, then reverse engineer that. And this is where people sometimes get stuck. They've got all the ideas and I'm like, well, how many chapters do you imagine it being? Just pick a number.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the third tip is like fill in those chapters. Like start with like chapter 1 would be this, and like maybe you don't know chapter 2, but maybe you know chapter 7, or
Right.
what do you want the last chapter? Just start filling them in, and then go to the ones that you know the most. Like, oh, I can talk about this topic. Absolutely. Now it doesn't have to be 12 chapters. You can maybe do 5 chapters. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can do whatever you want. So I would say
Yeah.
all of a sudden, then you have a book.
And especially nowadays, I mean, they actually say, I think if I remember well from the International Coaching Week last year, that the average, I mean, the best average was, I think, 96 pages, I think it was. You know, that nowadays people don't like, you know, War and Peace and Anna Karenina and all those huge books of a book.
Quick read. You're not, you know, probably curing cancer at this point. You're just giving people some bite-sized, valuable tips that they can use for life, for business, for whatever it is that you're
that you're working on. So what's next for you then?
Oh, what's next for me? That's a great question. I am just continuing to enroll people into my speakers training academy. We are cooking.
Yeah.
And I have a podcast as well. I have a podcast called How I Met My BFF, and I co-host that with my childhood best friend from Alaska.
Oh.
And yeah,
so that's got nothing to do with speaking gigs. That's something completely separate.
Totally separate. Yeah. So
that could be a book as well one day.
Yeah, it could be. We could end up doing that. We actually just got back from Italy on a best friend trip with other best friends. So we are, you know, open to all kinds of possibilities for best friend adventures.
Exactly. And I mean, there's so many things that we can make books out, and it is creating value. And as you say, everybody learns in different ways. And especially for those who are not ready to straight away commit to a, you know, usually quite, it's an investment to take a course in something or other, because it's a lot of time and expertise on our part, that you at least get an idea for what it's for, and then if you can do it on your own, or if you do really need somebody to really coach you through the process. Leisa, thank you very, very much for this. I'm most curious about your BFF podcast, which I shall look up as well. Yes, I thank you, first of all, in the name of all of us here, for your tips. I thought it was really, down to earth and practical, and makes total sense for me. And each time I speak to an author like you, and I see your book there in the background with your flowers, it just looks so professional and so whole, where everything sort of ties in together. And nowadays we need a book to our name to really set us in a certain niche. So thank you very much. For those of you listening as well, Dawn, for example, you were talking before, Leisa, about getting some help. I mean, she actually, I know, has a program as well, where she can help you bring your book to market. So that's maybe, if you need some commitment, that might be a good step to take too. Leisa, thank you. You're not in Alaska now, are you? Where are you now?
No, I'm in sunny California. Totally different.
I was going to say, you look dressed like, yes, exactly. I've got the layers on here in the Netherlands. You're not dressed for Alaska. Well, enjoy sunny California. Thank you for sharing your sun and warmth with us here tonight, and all the very, very best. Bye-bye, everyone. Good luck, and get those books out there. Bye.